Hello, everybody. Welcome here to the Wine with Jimmy channel. Here we've got the diploma for WSET looking at Catalunya. So we are on a 2-series special, and we're in the middle here of Priorat and Montsant. So we're going through Priorat. This is part 3. If you do have a comment, question, please pop it below this video. Scribble away. Good to hear from you. Anything you may say about Priorat, maybe you've tried some of these wines. So let's get rocking and rolling, talking about the key grape varieties that we find in this very iconic region of Spain. So here is an overview of the 2018 figures of the DOQ Priorat. So you'll see that we have a leading number by Garnacha. So Garnacha sits at around 41%. Cariñena comes in second at about a quarter of plantations. Syrah and Cabernet both have 10%. Merlot at 6%. Garnacha Blanca is the first white at 5%. And then the others account for 4% up here. So we are really dominated by 2 grape varieties. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I will mention the leading white grape variety. So the 2 major black varieties and the leading white variety. Okay, here we go. So first of all, Garnacha Tinta. I have put the Catalan spelling of it up here as well for your information. So Garnacha Tinta is a high-yielding variety which needs, as we are probably well aware, it needs a warm climate to ripen. Its upright growth makes it very suitable to be head-trained spur-pruned as a bush vine, and it typically is pruned short from head training to contain its vigor, because it is one of these very vigorous varieties. So therefore, it also does well in terms of quality production on drier, low fertility soils, so the vigor is restricted. So we know it's productive, and we also know that it ripens grapes up to very high levels of alcohol. Typically, Garnacha comes into the cellar somewhere between 14 and 16.5% alcohol, so fairly significant, of course. Garnacha is also early budding but late ripening, so it actually needs that long season, as mentioned before, but also because it's picked late, it goes into that increased risk of autumnal rains. Now that's going to happen in most places, probably less so here, but there are certainly a more increased threat of rain. We know it's fantastic in the dry conditions. It has very good drought resistance. This is the reason why this variety is an interesting style for the future, certainly with the increase in global temperatures through climate change. Now, often due to the nature on how it's trained, which is typically head trained, spur pruned, it has very good wind tolerance. So we have a very low center of gravity vine with good sort of structure, general structure. So it does quite well against wind. It's prone to coulure in the grapes. So you may find a loss of blossom, which could reduce yields. And also fungal diseases such as powdery mildew, phomopsis, downy mildew, and botrytis bunch rot. So they are what we can find here as well. Typical styles for Garnacha. So it produces a variety of wines, of course, across Spain, reds and rosates, but it typically adds very bright to very ripe and sometimes jammy red fruit across the sort of strawberry, red plum and red cherry spectrum. You may find spice, things like clove, cinnamon, white pepper, along with high alcohol, low to medium tannins, and lowish acidity. The acidities can change depending on the geology. So here with Licorella, you can tend to find a bit more brighter acidities coming through in the wines. And it's the same with granitic-based Garnachas in places like the Sierra de Gredos, for example, in central Spain. Please do note that Garnacha Tintorera is a different grape variety altogether. So Garnacha Tinta versus Garnacha Tintorera. Tintorera is actually Alicante Boucher, so a synonym for it, but it's not Garnacha Tinta. And also look out for another Garnacha, which is called Garnacha Peluda. Garnacha Peluda is what we actually translate as hairy Grenache, because the underside of the leaves can have this kind of hairy texture. So it is another form of Garnacha. Now, the secondary grape variety, accounting for about 1 out of 4 of plantations, is the Cariñena variety. So this is a late budding, very late ripening style. So it really thrives on the heat of the Mediterranean to, of course, ripen fully. It's particularly suited to the harsh and very arid conditions found here in Priorat and also D.O. Montsant. So it's generally actually found on the warmest sites in this DOQ and surrounding DOs. This is the very old Cariñena, so the Centurion Cariñena at Mastoir, as you'll see here. So wonderful old vines. One thing to mention, though, in areas such as France, it is exceptionally vigorous and highly productive, with up to 200 hectolitres per hectare, known as Cariñena, of course. That typically produces wines of low fertility. To produce wines of high concentration from this variety, the yield has to be managed, sharply reduced. And this typically happens by conscious grape growers or naturally through old vines, typically in excess of 50 years, where you get a reduction in yield. Now, due to the climate, geology, and geography of Priorat, Cariñena is naturally low yielding here and capable of producing, of course, complex, structured, and intense wines off the bat. I really want to quantify that, because if you go and try a sort of €5 bottle of Cariñena from the south of France, and then you try a Priorat made with a large percentage of Cariñena, and you know that they're both high yielding, the styles are so different. The southwest is paler and kind of slightly fruity, but with low intensity, whereas the Cariñena in Priorat is dark, complex, deep, intense, with really big structure and tannin behind it due to those low yields. Now, we know it adds color, tannin, and typically black fruit with some floral compounds to the blend here. So it really is quite complementary to Garnacha, which typically has less amounts of tannin and acid, more red fruit characteristic. These two varieties kind of go like Syrah and Grenache go together in the south of France. They work very well to counter the structures and the acidities and also the colors of fruit. Other permitted black varietals, so you have Garnacha Peluda, which is hairy Grenache, found in Catalunya and places like Roussillon and Fitu Minevoire and also Corbière. Tempranillo is found here, but it's not major. Syrah, Cabernet, and Merlot have more plantations. We talked about that with the pie chart earlier. A bit of Cabernet Franc and a very small amount of Pinot Noir. These are permitted grape varieties for DOQ Priorat. And then just the one major white grape variety, which is our Garnacha Blanca. So this is a mid-budding and ripening grape variety. It's vigorous, prone to fungal disease, but it then mirrors black Garnacha in terms of its drought resistance and general wind resistance as well. So it is very similar to its red namesake. The styles that we expect, it has very similar characteristics to Garnacha Tinta in terms of alcoholic strength and then significant extract, but with more reduced aromas that you'd expect than a red Garnacha. It is the lead white grape variety in Priorat. It's generally oak matured, crafting mid-priced and premium wines. They can be wonderful and quite powerful expressions. You'll often find low to mid-intensity green fruit and some floral notes. You can also find that on the right types of geology, such as licorella or even limestone, at higher altitudes, there is an increase in the acidity. Some innovative producers are using a few days skin contact through a cold skin maceration to produce white wines with a real extraordinary fresh sappiness. Jordi Vidal Pardinella at La Conneria de Scala is one of those skilled winemakers, and the certain wine you should look out for is the Ayugata Le Brugière. I'll scribble this down because it's one of those sort of Catalan names which I do not have the ability to pronounce. Let's pop it down here. There you go. Look out for that, certainly. Other key grape variety permitted white varietals, of course, Macabeu. Pedro Jimenez is found here. Little bit of Chenin Blanc, Muscat of Alexandria, Muscat Blanca Patigran, Charello, Picpoul, and Viognier is a newcomer to the list as well. Some of you may have tried Cariñena Blanca, so white Carignan. It's not currently permitted by DOQ Priorat, but probably will be sometime soon. Okay, that brings me to a conclusion looking at the major grape varieties of Priorat. Please do join me for part 4 when we talk about winemaking techniques, the specific wine laws and regulation found in this iconic region. Once again, if you have any comments, questions or concerns, please do comment on this video below. Make sure you click like and subscribe. Every little helps. And if you find yourself in the UK, come and say hi. Come and say hi for a class, a glass, or a bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.